for a phone. Okay, so we're doing chapter 1, which is database management. So at the end of the chapter, we'll be able to think of all these things, focusing on data warehouse, data mining, and then data collection and so forth. So there's our data collection, warehousing, mining, and caring for the data. Alright, so databases, we went through that. The main idea of it is to store a lot of data in a structured manner so that we can easily access it. So that's the whole idea behind it. Our DBMS is software we use to manage our databases. So the one that we know most is Microsoft Access, but MySQL, SQLite, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, any of those programs that we actually use to create databases, to work with databases, they are database management softwares. I think that was also in grade 11. Defining data, who wants to try that for us? If you have to define data, what would you classify it as?
Isn't data just processed information, or am I thinking of something else?
Unprocessed information.
Yeah,
One or
so
the other. I'm not certain which is which.
yeah, you remembered the information part. Information is processed data. So data is just elements or what can I say? It's information about something that we want to store, but that's not necessarily organized yet. Raw unprocessed facts. Yeah. Well done. Thanks, Annika. That's a good one. Yeah. Raw unprocessed facts. Alright, then. Okay, I think the rest is relatively straightforward. I'm not even going to look at that. Alright. So, data collection. So, especially the people that do CAT and stuff, in databases you can create forms. But even nowadays we have lots of forms. You get your Google forms and all of them. And we create forms when we want to capture data easily and quickly. So we can use all our different components to make it easier for us. I want us to quickly look at them, not necessarily for this chapter, but just for coding or for our pets in general. So when we look at checkboxes, what do we generally use checkboxes for, and how do they look, or tell us something about checkboxes? Who wants to try? Kosi, can you tell us? Tell us something about checkboxes. What makes checkboxes unique?
Checkboxes, it's usually along the lines of a multiple choice thing. Like when you get a checkbox or when you have to fill out a checkbox, there's a set of answers. You can't just write any random answer.
Okay, so your checkboxes is sort of the same as radio buttons, except you can select multiple options. So you'll tick whichever options apply. So it's when you want to select certain things, but you want to have multiple selections, or no selections. I think combo boxes is also straightforward in the sense where our list of options are there, and using the drop down button you can choose one of the options inside there. With a combo box, however, you also just select one option from there. Spinners, Jock, what would you say about spinners for us?
I know what it is, but
Where would you use one?
yeah.
Okay, so our spin edits, that's the ones where normally it's numbers, integers. Something like an age or a grade, where you can just, by spinning the values inside, select the specific one that you would want. Give me a few seconds, sorry people. Okay, sorry about that. Drop down lists is basically, well, I don't know why they've got drop down here, but when we think of lists, who wants to try? What is a list? And what makes it unique, type of thing? Stefan, maybe? Or Annika? Yeah, okay, so I think Annika's
Oh,
net.
so
Oh
hello,
yeah,
can you
you're
hear
back.
me?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay,
now.
yeah, I'm at home. I'm just the list box. That's from all the options.
Yeah, it's funny when you were in the car, it worked much better. Now, okay, but yes. So I think Annika was basically saying the right thing there. A list box is where you can see all the different
Oh,
options.
hello, sir.
There, now we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, sorry, I just got disconnected. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what I said. You can see all the options and then you select one.
Yeah, and then you just select from there. Text boxes is like where we can enter any random thing, and buttons is to click on. So all these GUI components assist us to make the user to input data quicker and to actually limit the errors that they make, so that we can get information quick from users and that we know they are reliable. Just for the fact that it's not easy to, so like with gender, we can use radio buttons to make sure the user can only select one, so the odds of him making a mistake is very limited. Tags, remember this is now everything to collect data. So with tags, you get these tags for like runners in the comrades runners, and in the Boston or the London marathon. They get tags for, like, I don't know if it's on their shoes or on a small piece of paper or something. Then as they pass through certain checkpoints, it can record. So anybody can actually at any time, you can sort of track where the person is you want to see. If you've got a family member or friend that runs the comrades, you can go to a certain site and they can sort of tell you where that person is. And the only reason why is they actually they've got the checkpoints, so when the person goes over a checkpoint, they record the time, and then they'll see average time and sort of guess where the person will be before the next checkpoint. But there'll be quite a few checkpoints to keep track of where everybody is. I see they also talk here about like warehouses for vehicle tracking, pet tracking. So these electronic tags, radio frequency, what do we call those tags again? Oh, there it is, RFIDs. So you can basically track that. Your RFID is basically the same thing. It's as small as a SIM card, and that's also then for to open doors, to access control is the main purpose where they use that. But you can use it for other things on this, but on both of them, these both tags and RFID. For me, this is actually the same thing. I don't know why they've got it separate. But the information is also stored on there. Like I said, now if you cross over a checkpoint in like the comrades, they'll know who you are and your age and all that stuff, so that if somebody wants to see, they'll know who crossed over that specific checkpoint. Yeah. Then let's see what they've got here. Okay, so RFID, you can do all these things with it. Tickets for people on public transport, all products sold in a shop, all products stored in a warehouse, tools workshop. So you can use that to keep track of where different things are. Okay, our e-tolls and RFID. You know, also a lot of toll gates now. They've got that tag lane where you can go on the right, where you can just sort of, you'll see like trucks and stuff, they just go past there. That's like an e-tag, where the information is already stored there. So when you go through, they'll sort of bill you for the toll gate, and that's how our e-toll also works, where they'll keep track of basically. But with this one, you can do it with tags. With the e-tolls, you could register and then you'll get like a sensor thingy in your car where you can like prepaid all the toll money. Otherwise, if you don't have, it keeps track of the number plates that goes past, and then using that they'll send you a bill. Okay, which is now not RFID, because it's just your number plate. Digital sensors, you get all the ones that can test humidity and light, but you also get your barcode scanners that can keep track of information on a product. You'll see if you scan a product with a barcode scanner, it will actually tell you what product it is. It might actually, depending on what information is stored, but it could tell you expiry date, it could tell you where it was bought, and lots of other information about that specific thing. But you also get other sensors. Nowadays our cars has got sensors so that it will pick up when it's raining to put the wipers on by itself. So, and all these things are there to collect information, to sort of make it easier for us to gather whatever data we want faster and quicker and so forth. Invisible online data collection. Does anybody sort of know or heard about that? What do you think that is?
I have a guess.
Yes,
But
tell us.
first, I'd like to give some interesting information about barcode scanners.
Which scanners?
Barcode
Okay, yeah.
scanners.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
actually they scan the white spaces between the black lines and not the black lines.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Also, on the note of barcode scanner, someone once played Rainbow Six Siege using barcode scanners. With one thing as moving forward, crouching, shooting. It went very bad, but it could.
All right.
Okay.
As for invisible online data collection, I
Mhm.
think that's sort of the stuff that we're dealing with now, in the sense of when you are online doing things, they are quietly monitoring you and making note of what you're doing. So they're collecting data on you, the kind of music you like to listen to, the kind of YouTube videos you like to watch, the kind of things you're into, if you like fashion or technology or this or that or that. They build a profile on you so they can, sell that or keep that or whatever.
Yeah, but also a main thing with this is the invisible data collection part has to do with the part where information is captured on you or from you without you knowing it. So, and what that means is, let's say you go to a shop and you buy with your credit card, you buy a loaf of bread. You would think, okay, they're keeping track of I bought the bread. So that's a type of information that's not necessarily invisible, because you can sort of know that this is what they're keeping track of. But now what they also do is they check that at what time did you buy and from where did you buy. So now suddenly they sort of also, in a sense, seeing the time and location are from where you bought, and you don't know that that information was also captured. And that's the invisible part, which they normally refer to, is, so it's not the general stuff, because you would think, okay, if I go buy a car, they kept track of, now yes, I bought a car at this place, so now I own a bakkie or a taxi or a whatever I bought. But if they now go a bit further and capture, okay, but you paid with credit card or whatever, or you bought at that time from that person, so that other information that also get captured without you actually knowing about it, that is our invisible data capture. So it's not the general ones that you would think, okay, they are keeping track of it. It's that other additional information that also get captured that makes this invisible data capture. And there's people that capture that and use it to sell to other companies to then use, so that they can then market their products and so forth and so forth. It also goes with, like about 5 years ago, Facebook had a lawsuit against them, and it had to do with when you create, let's say Corsi creates a Facebook website, Facebook, he logs into Facebook and whatever. Actually, when you create your account, right at the start, they actually ask you to accept. So Corsi accepted that. Normally you don't read even through that thing. You just scan to the bottom and say accept, so you can go in. You just want to be on Facebook. So now he's there, but what he accepted was, he accepted that Facebook will basically collect data on him. So he gave them permission. But now, of course, he goes to a party where two of his friends are, and they are not on Facebook. So they did not accept it. But now, of course, he goes and he took pictures with them, selfies with them, loaded that it's person X's birthday and they're there. So now suddenly Facebook is gathering information on person X, even though that person did not accept. And that's where Facebook sort of got into trouble a bit, in the sense that they were starting to then collect data on person X, but person X never gave them permission because he didn't accept, and he's not on Facebook, but they sort of gathered it through Corsi. So that's the invisible part as well. Corsi accepted. If he read it, he knew they're going to capture information about him, but he didn't know they're also going to capture information about the people now that he's tagging, or the people that's with him in the pictures, and now they're also capturing that data. And that is the invisible part, where suddenly other information that we didn't even know that they want to capture, they are also capturing that information and then using it for whatever use. So that's our invisible data capturing. Okay, talking about all that. Transaction tracking. So transaction data, like the type of transaction, where it's located, the employee performed. So it's basically what I mentioned now. That's the stuff that they suddenly now keeping track of that we didn't know. I mean, even if you think, checkers, they just now, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year ago or so, they brought out that saving card, that orange thing. And then you think, it is free, you can just get it, and if you've got it, now suddenly everything is cheaper. And why does Clicks have a card that now gives you discount if you go put in petrol in a certain place, or if you just buy from them? Now suddenly you get discount just for having the card. So why didn't they just give everybody the discount? Why with a card? Because the whole reason of the card is that card, every time you swipe it, they actually capture data on you, and they can then sell that to other companies, and that's why you get discount, because they're sort of paying you for helping them to capture your data so that they can then sell it again to other companies, so that they gather their money back sort of from that. So that's another thing they do. Location-based information. So location-based data is data that's provided information about different things that can be shown on maps. Static location-based data includes data such as road maps and all those things. Non-static contains positions of aeroplanes, tracking transport, stolen vehicles, so everything that moves. Alright, so location-based services. You'll see you've got, like they talk about the Pokemon Go game, where specific locations will have specific Pokemon, but it will have the non-static information, which is where you are and where you've been moving to and stuff like that, but it will have the static locations of like where certain buildings are and so forth. Alright, so that's everything with our collection of data. Specific questions that you can get from here. The main one that they really like is they like talking about this invisible data. Just why, what, examples, and RFID tags. That's the two most common ones that they actually talk a lot about and ask questions about. I'm trying to think if there's anything in the news lately about any of these things, but not that I can think of now. Well, you know what I'm thinking. These things might actually be especially location-based services. Like that the app. I think it's the app that was it the president that said we must install it on our phones. The tracking app for COVID. So that one will actually use location-based services. So there they actually wanted you to have the app on, because what the app did was, if you got close to anybody else with the same app, it captured their like information, so that if you went and you tested positive, then they can download from your phone to see who else was in contact with you, and then try to track them to see if they also have got COVID or not. So this location-based services was used for that also, to just keep track of where different people were, to track where the COVID infection could have spread. Yeah. Alright. If you think of anything, please ask while we're going through this stuff. Just trying to scan through if I can see anything that's too important. I see they talk here about rollback. Anybody wants to try what is a rollback? If one task fails, the transaction is rolled back.
No, when something goes back to a previous state.
Yes. So sometimes it will try to install a certain program, and if it gets to a certain stage where it realizes no, it's not going to work, or you've got the wrong stuff, or the file's corrupt or something, if it rolls back, it just means it will remove all the files it already extracted and maybe changes it made to your system. It will reverse all of those changes back to the state it was before it started this process. Alright. Okay, data warehousing. What is data warehousing? Can anybody remember what is data warehousing? Alright, so data warehouse. It's like a warehouse. Warehouse is a place where large number of products is stored. So data warehouse is a place where a large amount of databases are actually stored. So you'll see, unlike most databases where the data is normalized and stored in an efficient manner, a data warehouse takes the data from these databases and store them in a non-normalized way. So it will literally just take a lot of data from a lot of databases and then just store them there. So there won't necessarily be a good sequence to them, there won't be any relationships between the tables, it's just a large amount of data that's just stored here. So what's the purpose of this, or what can we do with this data warehouse? Alright, so that's where the other word comes in, data mining. We can use a process which is called data mining, where it will actually look at a data warehouse and look through all of that for patterns or similarities, which it can analyze and then give a report on. So it might look at, it depends what's in the database warehouse, but it will look for that other information. Sort of like when I spoke about the invisible data capture. It looks for that type of information. So it won't have information like critical what you need, but what it could maybe tell you is which times is a certain sector of a company or a country busy, which months, which ethnic groups, which genders doing certain things at certain times. So that's sort of what you get from there. So a sort of general information but on specific patterns for something. But you'll use the data mining technique to look at all of the data and try to make some sense out of it so that we can use it. It's important to understand that the data warehouse does not contain copies of the original databases. Instead, it is a new database that is created to hold structured data from multiple sources. Alright, so data warehouse versus a database. A data warehouse and databases are similar in the way that both store relational data systems. However, they were built to serve different purposes. The warehouse stores large quantity of historical data, and all the data from various databases are available, while a database stores current transactions and enables easy access to specific transactions and ongoing business processes. So database is a current thing. It's something we use now with current information that we can use now with like more exact answers, while this one is historical data, the data warehouse. So that's where, like I said, you can use that to analyze, to get specific patterns, to see what happened in the past, and to see how that could assist us in future decisions. Alright, and there's just information on that. Data mining, okay, we actually discussed that now. So it's a process to identify trends or patterns between different sets of large databases. Selecting the right data of large amounts of data is called big data. Can help show trends, patterns between data sets. So they also like to ask you what is big data. So just remember, big data is just large amounts of data. It's called big data. Alright, so data mining can be used in marketing. Like I said, when you look at specific trends and stuff, you'll know when to advertise what to which people and so forth. Okay, so the data mining process: extract the relevant data, look for a pattern, and then discover knowledge from the pattern. Okay, then there they sort of explain that you must just look for specific fields to extract from a specific table, specific conditions, looking for a pattern. That's like I explained, where you want to see something specific that's happening in the past to get a pattern that we could use for nowadays. And then when you've identified that, we can use it to assist us with decisions we take now. It's data mining. Right, caring and managing for your data. So if you think of that, caring for and managing data, what do you think is necessary? Alright, so one thing that immediately pops up when we think about this is backups. We're going to need to do backups. But let's see what else they say here. For a database to be useful, it needs to record and store valuable and useful data. To decide if the data is valuable to record, you can ask yourself the following questions. So you can ask that. Alright, so this is important. 5 characteristics: the quality of data. So it must be accurate. You must have specific answers. You can't just have vague answers. It must be consistent. It must be current. So it can't be old news. It must be complete. You have to have all the information. Just having pieces won't help you. And it must be relevant. It must be something that the people would want to store data of. Okay, so to protect our data, we can do all these things. Data validation, data verification. The difference between those two is very important. Data integrity checks, logging changes, data warehousing, access control, and parallel data sets. So data validation, that has to do... No, okay, who wants to try? What's the difference between validation and verification?
Verification is when you make sure if the user that the data they entered is correct.
Okay.
Data validation is when you check it against the data against preset parameters to see if it can be actual data and not garbage data.
Yeah, okay, I like that. So validation can sort of be done by a computer. Validation is something like checking that when you ask for gender, that it's only male or female. And if you ask for the age of a person in high school, that you know it's like between 12 and 20. So that's your validation. You can actually have a computer with like if statements. You can check that whatever the person types in, that it's actually in the correct range or out of the correct sequence of options. Verification needs to be done by a person. So that is when you actually need a person to make sure that if the person said he's female, to just check and make sure that he is really female, and so forth. Integrity checks. Who wants to try that for us? Jock, what do you say?
Security, essentially. Proper security for data, like uh, anti-hacked, anti-getting hacked, whatever things.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So integrity just means that the information is still in the correct state, like when it was entered. If one person typed in something that another person that doesn't have or doesn't supposed to have access could not sign in and then change the values, so that the data is still in the correct state that it was when it was entered, and that unauthorized people didn't change the information. Logging changes, that is just when, in most systems, when somebody logs into the system, it keeps track of, it's also called audit trails. So it keeps track of who did what when. So that if you wanted to see, oh, but the information is wrong, you can go back and see, oh, but then person X signed in at that time and he changed the information. Then you know person X is the person responsible for making the problem. Data warehousing, we sort of discussed already. Access control, that is physical access to the system as well. So maybe having biometric scanners or whatever to make sure that only certain people can have access to the data. And parallel data sets. It's you'll see now it's two data sets, sort of a backup system that we've got there. Okay, so validation, we discussed. Verification, we did. Integrity, data security, to make that the data is not corrupted. Logging changes is there's our audit trail that keeps track of who made the changes, what changes was made, and when it was made. Data warehousing, make incorrect data entries, corrupt visible. Data warehouses can make data loss more visible, allowing the problem to be fixed. The data warehouses can be used to recover critical data if deleted or corrupted. So data warehouse can be used like a backup system. Access control, three ways to access control. Okay, you can use passwords to protect our information. We can have user rights, so only certain people will have access to certain files. So we can allow, like, the finance people will have access to all staff finances and all that, but then the warehouse manager could have access to all the warehouse information but not the staff salaries and so forth. And then good database security, it's just there, so that's our biometric scanners and stuff. Parallel data sets is for backups, so that's sort of where you've got two sets of data that is stored, so that if the one collapses we can carry on with the other one. To ensure data has not been corrupted or deleted, the database is checked at intervals against the perfect copy of it, called the parallel data set. So it just means you've got two sets of the information, two databases that are duplicates, so that they can use each other to be checked and then to make a backup or recovery from. And I think that's it. Yeah. Alright, that's chapter 1.